So this whole week, everyone's been yapping about kill the crab, CC the crab, and everything, and I just see fucking spiders everywhere, man.
So, Mythic week, how's it been?
Pretty good. The difficulty level's been kind of up and down, you could say, I guess.
What do you mean?
I mean, the first four bosses were very, very
Oh,
easy, and then Broodtwister was, I'm not gonna say very hard, but I guess with our gear was pretty hard, and it was definitely a lot harder than the first four bosses.
oh yeah, for sure. We discussed last week how we thought the difficulty was gonna be in the raid, and I feel like I was more off than you, but I feel like we were both a bit off. Like I don't think neither of us expected Sikran to just fall, uh, and I think we both expected Rashanan to be more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely expected that we would kill. I mean, I think we both predicted that we would kill four. I think you even predicted five, but I don't think we predicted that the first four would be that easy. Because they were not. They didn't really put up much of a fight at all. I think you guys one shot both Sikran and Ulgrax, right? And we one
Yeah,
shot. We one shot Bloodbound. So across our guilds, we one shot the first three bosses.
yeah.
If you combined us into a super guild. Um, but
Yeah, I
then
saw I saw some people that delayed Mythic a bit more had Rashanan on a one shot or pretty much one shot. Um,
yeah, I think we had
I thi-
7 pulls on Rational.
I think we had a bit more, like 9 or 10, if I recall correctly. And
Yeah.
then you walk into Ovi'nax, which will be what, like a easily 100 plus, but I don't know if it's 200 or 150 to be
Yeah, I think
expected.
we almost did 90 pulls already on Broodtwister now,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so let's say 150 with the reset. That's
yeah,
quite a
maybe.
big step up. And then Raise the World first had did they have 300 on Nexus Princess?
Yeah, 302 or something, I think. Yeah, something like that. They had a lot of pulls. So that's quite the step up as well. But I think isn't kind of both Broodtwister and Nexus Princess are bosses that are very, very heavily nerfed by gear.
I
Um,
think so, but I'm guessing Nexus Princess is gonna be a bit more difficult if you're not gonna run the solo tank, Shaman Totem and Ressus shenanigan, because like we're not gonna even if we manage to outgear them by literally a couple of item levels, it won't make up for a whole other DPS, right?
Um, yeah, maybe. I mean, we were sort of looking at. I think Michael actually has really, really good DPS. It looks like. I think we had some of the fastest kills on all of the bosses at the point where we did it, and I think we were like pacing ahead of Method on Ovi'nax and stuff for parts of our progress as well. So I don't know, maybe. I mean, it's hard to say how much how much item level actually helps you, right? But I think like one or two eye level on the raid above what they have now, which I am assuming what we'll have next week. I think that's going to actually be a pretty huge difference.
I think it will be very noticeable on Ovi'nax, but I'm not sure. Presuming assuming you're not gonna one tank, I think Nexus Princess might need to get a bit more nerfed, or you need another week or something.
Yeah, do you think they're going to change Nexus Princess so that you cannot solo tank it?
I mean, hopefully. I mean, it's kind of difficult to match the comp on Ovi'nax and then into Nexus Princess, right? Like you're effectively going from 2 blood DKs to 1 non-blood DK if you're gonna match the Raise the World first comp, and then you have to add the Resto Shaman, I guess. I know Method played a Holy Paladin instead of second press, but there's quite a big difference in the DPS comp as well, right? They're playing a bunch of mages or enhancement shamans or dev or whatever. Like it's not super similar to Ovi'nax, right?
Yeah, no, it's kind of different. Yeah.
You're removing DKs, you're removing a Fury Warrior, you're changing up the tanks and removing a tank, and you're adding a healer back, and yeah, it's been a big comp variety in these fights. I haven't really paid attention to what the difference has been on the second to last boss on court. Have you?
No, but I think they're also not that far into court, so I'm still expecting them to sort of switch things up, right? They've only done like the first like 50% of the boss or something, I think. I haven't looked now during the we could just like we just came out of raid, both of us. I haven't actually looked for the past like
Yeah.
4 hours now, but prior to that they were like not even at 50%, and I'm assuming that the second part is the hardest, right? When you get the actual other phases where they do things at the same time.
Yeah.
So I guess there's quite a bit left there. But it's at least good to see, even though I don't really like the one tanking thing, that's kind of gimmicky, and I don't like all the DKs, but it's good to see in general that it looks like people at least have played sort of different comps, at least on the DPS side, and even on the healer side, I think. Which is kind of cool, right? That there's, even at the world first level, there's some diff like in the comp.
I think it's cool, but I don't like it. I don't think it's very good. Like, if the tuning is, it depends on how heavy the nerfs will be. But if you look at Ovi'nax as the first boss you actually have to, or you sort of want to change your comp, you have to make some drastic changes, assuming you have a sort of balanced comp to begin with, right? Like, you need to insert 2 blood DKs preferably. If you're not gonna play 2 blood DKs, you pretty much want to 3 tank. You
Yeah, and
probably can't.
I think it's going to be very hard to have the DPS without having like raised world first level splits, right? Having the DPS to 3 tank Broodtwister at least in this week, I think it's very hard.
Yeah. And then you effectively have to insert as many Sug melees as you can, right?
Yeah.
Like, the more Fury Warriors and Frost DKs, the better. You probably want at least 2 of each. Would be great to have 3 of both or 1. I'm not sure exactly. And then you need to squeeze in 2 Preservation Evokers. I know you guys are playing with only 1, but
yeah, we don't have a second Press Evoker. I don't think we have anyone who's prepped it, so yeah, we're not playing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I mean, hopefully it works out, but I'm a bit skeptical that the Resto Shaman is gonna be able to heal all the fight, the entire fight.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we've had much issue with healing. I think there was some talk now on the very end, like 7 minutes into the fight, we get to the point where there starts to be some sort of healing issues, but we also haven't been there that many times yet. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like it's quite an easy boss to heal. I mean, I play Preservation Evoker and I'm broken, right? But like, the difficulty I don't feel like falls on the healers by reducing a healer on that fight. It pretty much falls to the raid, which I guess mainly means tank and melee for once. Because if you're playing the meta comp on that fight with 2 press, 1 holy priest, you only have the holy priest being able to spot heal. And normally you have a holy paladin as well, right?
Yeah.
And with 8 absorbs going out, the add explosion or spawning the adds, and the tank debuff at the same time, it's a bit rough for the holy priest, but that just means you can't take extra damage. Like, the melee standing in swirlies and being slow with going out with the root and stuff. You can't really out heal too much of that, like, it's not possible. So when everything goes sort of according to plan, I'm kind of chilling. Like, there's Russian was a lot more healing,
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a reason why you're 3 healing the boss, right? Is because you wouldn't really need the 4th healer, right?
yeah, especially if you have to press or 2 healers that can do big bursts of healing and 1 healer that can spot heal. I guess that's sort of true for press and Resto Shaman as well, right?
Yeah.
It's very periodical as of where you need to heal. So it kind of surprised me because it looks scary when you go down a healer, but I feel like it was fine. But to go back to what you originally said, that it's cool to see a lot of specs represented in the Race World First. I think yeah, but it poses a big problem for us depending on how well or how much the bosses get nerfed.
And I to be clear, I don't think I actually said that there's necessarily many different specs, but there's difference in the comp. But it's almost like they're stacking kind of a little bit different classes, but it's still. I mean, it's more like, do you have 4 arcane mages or do you have 3 enhancement shaman? It's not like, these random weird specs are coming in any of their comps, right? Really, right? It's just
Well,
what they're sort of stacking, right?
Dratnos, I think it was, tweeted and not a tier list, but effectively showing which specs have been used. And it was like the vast majority of specs have been used in a race to world first kill, and then like 5 had been used in progress, and then you haven't seen 6 or something. So
Okay.
you've effectively seen all but 6 specs, and most of those are like was at least like Fire Mage, which we've seen now on Silken Court, and like Mistweaver and random specs of classes that are represented.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's
like,
been a big diversity as well.
honestly, it's almost more surprising to see like the third best DPS spec of a triple DPS class, right? Than to not like it's more likely the way that it would have played out, where you would never see like fire if fire is the worst mage spec, right? It's almost
Yeah.
it would almost be unheard of, I think, in the same race to see someone play all 3 specs of the same DPS class. I think that seems kind of crazy. But yeah.
Okay, so he's listed the only specs you haven't seen or not used yet, unless I missed it, hehe, is Survival, Prot Warrior, Fire Mage, Mistweaver, Resto Druid, and Shadow Priest. And I'm quite sure we've seen. I'm completely sure we've seen Fire Mage now. And it wasn't Method playing a Shadow Priest?
I don't know. We're playing a Shadow Priestess list, but I guess we're not on Dratnos' list.
Yeah. No, it's a top 3 race world first kid, so Echo
Yeah.
Liquid
Yeah,
Method.
yeah, of course. I'm just screwing around. Yeah, but before we sort of, I think we have a lot to say probably about Broodtwister, but should we just maybe take a step back and just look at the bosses from the start and just go through them quickly, see what we thought about them, and then we can sort of, I think most of this today will just be about Broodtwister because that's the boss we've spent way, way, way the most time on this week.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So Ulgrox then. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. A little bit visually annoying boss. I didn't really. It felt a little bit like, I don't know, crowded or weird or something. I didn't like the way that the pull-in mechanic. I know we spoke a bit about like the pull-in last week, but obviously the way it works out is that it's strong enough that the only thing you can do is just run like crazy against it. You even gateway or heroic leaper or something, right? And you just run away. So there's no way you're gonna do anything useful, at least as a melee. In the time of doing that. And I guess as a range, you can only really throw some random instant cast or something. There's not much you can do anyway. So that mechanic is kind of meh. And then you just go and pad on the ads. So yeah, I don't know. Not a great first boss. Not the worst. It's not one of those, crazy annoying ones that we spoke about, like Hellfire Assault or whatever the first boss is in Sepulcher and shit like that. But well, I would probably say it's like a C tier or something. Not a great boss for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. It could have been better in my world if the pull-in doesn't really affect me too much, but I get how it's annoying. And I don't think I like the distance you have to play within in the intermission or P2 or whatever it's called, because you have to go back and forth and give him the meat, right?
Yeah.
And that means the entire raid is just spread because some people are slower and faster, and you're taking damage. And I just felt like the whole intermission P2 part was super awkward with the portals and everything as well.
Yeah. Did you assign like people to do the double? Because you need 5 people, I think, to do double.
No, we just sent it.
Yeah, we did that too. But I feel like you should probably just have assigned it to 5. Like, I don't know which classes are best at that type of movement, but yeah, probably would have been better to just assign 5 people.
Yeah, or maybe just assign 6 people to make sure 5 people get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's not like it was a problem in terms of like you would wipe to it or anything, but I just feel like really weird when I've brought my thing over and then I'm like, should I run back? Because I'm also one of those classes where I'm like, I'm probably not one of the 5 best to do it, but maybe. I mean, I don't know. Because like warrior
You go,
doesn't have great mobility in terms of like running, just running, right? It's more like if you
yeah,
can chase a target or something.
maybe with a time spiral you'd be good.
Yeah, or I could probably like spec into intervene or something that would also probably be help or something. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a. It just leaves me in a weird sort of middling spot. But yeah, honestly, don't have much to say about that fight. I think it's pretty bad, but it's not, not
Could have
nothing
been
that you're
worse.
gonna hate.
Yeah.
Um,
And Blood Horror then.
yeah. So I didn't actually play this. We're 25 people, I think. So we're rotating people around. So I was sitting on that boss. And also they one-shot it, so I only saw it. I saw like a healer POV of it once. That was the only thing I saw from the fight. But it
Mm.
seemed an awful lot like heroic. I don't know what your take on it was.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I went into the raid disliking that fight the most, and I don't think that's changed. I wouldn't like. I don't hate it, but there's no real fun parts of it. It's just annoying with a lot of movement and splitting the raid and the ads being really far apart. And yeah, I could see this being fun as a tank because they have to position the boss and do beam things and actually think for a second. But yeah, kind of meh. I'd put it below Ulgrax in fun.
Okay, so even below Ulgrax. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm not gonna. I guess I'm not gonna give a rating since I didn't play it on Mythic, but I have a feeling that I would like it a little bit more than Ulgrax just because it's a little bit more. For melee, none of those things, just like on Heroic, none of those things really are that annoying. And also, it's kind of fun to blast on the ads when you're a good AoE spec. So I can
Yeah.
see myself kind of enjoy it. I hope I get to play it next week. But I guess I don't think it drops anything good. So maybe I'll sit it next week as well. We'll see. Yeah. Then Sick Run, though, I feel like is a little bit more interesting, maybe, but not really.
I was super hyped for Sikran because it felt to me like the best version of like a Terros or some super mini patchwork fight, you know?
Yeah.
But I did not expect at all to pull it and one-shot it. I don't have any problem with any part of the fight. Like it was, I like the core, simple idea of the fight, but it was just too easy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Like it would have been good to have to fail to the DPS check on on one or two pulls, you know?
yeah, I mean, basically, like if you don't die to the mechanics and you have at least like, I mean, of course, if like you have 5 people dead the whole fight or something, you're not gonna make it. But even if you have 2 people dead for like 2 minutes or something, you're still gonna make it, right? There's very low, like the throughput check in terms of like how much you need to do to beat the timer is very low.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I mean, it felt like it wasn't. We didn't one shot. I think we had 3 pulls or something. I don't remember exactly. I don't have the numbers, but yeah, I mean, we never failed to the DPS check. We just failed to people dying to different things or whatever. And we also noticed actually, which I was surprised to see, which is that if you miss clearing one shadow or whatever they're called,
Yeah.
you're nowhere near dying from that, like not at all.
No, I think it's just like 200% more. So it's like missing one shadow is like clearing 3, but you're clearing 8 at one point or 7 if you miss one. So you can afford to miss like 2, and it's not going to be worse than what you've done previously, kinda.
Yeah, which is kind of like to me it because like when that happened, we had obviously not really prepared. I'm pretty sure someone said in Discord like, okay, well now we're wiping, but then it just did no damage, which was surprising. I feel like a myth, even if it's just the third boss, I feel like in Mythic, that type of thing, it's okay for something like that to one shot the raid. I think if you mess up something like that, then I think it's fine that the boss one shots everyone.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, again, it still wouldn't have been difficult enough. I feel like that. I think like the difficulty level of the first 2 bosses was probably okay. It's fine that there's like 2 easy bosses for people to get the easy 2 vault or whatever. But then I feel like they could have stepped up Sick Run. They could have done that thing where it one shots if you miss any of the shadows, and it could have had like 10% more HP and damage or something. I don't know what the number should be, but like a little bit more just to make it harder.
Yeah, I think for me mainly health would be, or like health would be the biggest improvement, just so it doesn't feel like you just kill it if you are clean-ish. Like I'm not sure exactly how it went down, but we didn't kill it with 20 people alive, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it
So it
just
was a
wasn't
bit
tight.
undramatic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Rashanan proved to be a bit more tough than, or less tough than expected, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely much harder than or well, not much harder, but it was definitely harder than the previous 3. But it wasn't. I was expecting it to be harder for sure. I think we had 7 pulls or something. So I mean, that's not the level I'm expecting. I'm expecting like 15 pulls, maybe. I don't know. Like at least like a little bit more. And I think again that boss, it's not tight in terms of any throughput. It's just tight in terms of like you can't have too many people screw up the web thing and kill people or stun people with a wave or whatever. Like there, I mean, you just
It's a
can't
lot
have
of
too many
leeway.
people fall off,
Yeah.
during the fight or like die during the fight.
Yeah. There's a bit more to it, or at least you can perceive it as a bit more dynamic or something, because you have to like add people to one side and send web people to the other side, and there's some minor overlaps, But once you've pulled it a few times and you figure out like the basic things, it's just gonna die. I think it's the same as Sikran, where it probably just could have used a bit more health if it's gonna act as sort of a pseudo mini patchwork check. The throughput requirement was quite high, but that sort of, if the health was higher, maybe you would have needed to 4 heal or something, or just squeeze out more DPS in general, and it would have been a bit more interesting.
Oh yeah,
Because
because that was a 5 heal, right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
at least we played 5 heal. Most people did, I think.
Yeah, I think we did as well. I think our Shadow Priest healed it. Actually, now I think about it, yeah.
But not too mechanically interesting. Quite satisfying to heal just because there's a lot of instances of damage. But then I feel like I prefer a fight like Sikran by design when there's bigger hits and like a dot. Because the main throughput mechanic requires quite a bit of healing, but it's not like you can barely see it on the raid frames when you're healing. You're just ticking over 15 seconds or something. So it's a completely different pattern from my perspective, and I guess it's just a little less dramatic and less fun.
Yeah, there was one thing that I thought was really annoying on that fight, which I just didn't understand why it was there. I don't know if maybe it was there just to give ranged a little bit of a, I don't know, to like make it easier for range to catch up to like these bursty melee or something. But when the ads spawn, you get knocked back. And you also get knocked back a really awkward amount. So like for something like, at least for warrior, like you can't charge. You have to like either you have to keep running backwards to charge it, or you have to just walk back in. It's just like a super awkward positioning, and I don't feel like it added anything to the fight. And I'm not sure why that was there or what the point of that was, unless it was just to screw with the bursty melee classes.
I think you just need to run out. Like it's a very small proximity you get knocked in. So if well, yards are kind of difficult since you're probably in melee range, but if you're standing like 15 yards from the edge of the platform, you're not gonna get knocked.
Yeah, but that's similar to just if I do that, I would just have to run. I don't think we also placed them close enough to the edge, but
yeah.
But yeah, that would be similar to having to do the charge thing then, which is just kind of awkward. But yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah, it's no big deal. It's just felt like one of those annoying mechanics, just that they just didn't want you to just be there and just pop your burst cooldowns,
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, nothing too crazy there either. But yeah, definitely a step up from the previous bosses, but still nothing particularly interesting either.
Yeah, Sikran should probably have been in the pull range of Rashanan, and then Rashanan itself being like a minor step up from that.
Yeah, because it becomes very awkward because so just so to be like clear, if we remember back to obviously I think none of us actually stepped into Mythic until Thursday because we did splits on the Wednesday. And then on Thursday we cleared the 4 bosses. And at that point the race to world first also was at only 4 bosses. So we sort of, and we were like, even guilds way below us as well, I think, caught up to the race to world first there, which was kind of weird. Because there just was no step up in difficulty. We're just 4 super, well, yeah, I would say pretty much 4 super easy bosses, I guess, and then one a lot harder coming after.
With an actual wall coming in.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, should we sort of go more in depth now what we think about Broodtwister? So obviously, to be clear, none of us have killed Broodtwister this week. Not that many guilds have killed it. I think we had 42% about 7 minutes into the fight. That's our best, and I think you guys were something similar as well, right?
Yeah, I think 46, and yeah, sort of similar, a bit behind.
Yeah, but like, almost 7 minutes into the fight as well. Then there's like, what is it, 3 minutes left or something then of the fight at that point?
Yeah, it's a 10-minute average.
Yeah, so it's not that. I mean, we progressed through a lot of it, and I think, given the gear we're gonna get next week, I think we're definitely killing it, right? I would be very surprised if both of our guilds didn't kill this next week, with another set of splits and also re-clearing the first 4 bosses as well.
Do you think it's gonna be a nerf?
I hope not.
Next
I
week?
I don't really see why they would nerf it. Because maybe, to get a little bit ahead of myself, I would like to see a nerf on Nexus Princess, where they fix the thing so that you can't solo tank it, but they nerf the HP by like 6% or what, I don't know what the amount should be, but just to make up for the fact that you couldn't solo tank it anymore. I think that would be good. But I don't think there's much point in Broodtwister being nerfed. Like, what would they nerf? Like the HP, or?
I think they need to nerf the ads in some ways, particularly the spider ads and maybe the Goonies. Because you're kind of like, a health nerf to the boss would do some things. But considering we're gonna get like significantly more gear, or every guild is gonna get more gear, the health is not gonna be an issue in a week or two. But I'm quite sure a part of the double blood decay is just way too broken, because not only do blood decays have all the grips and everything, we tried playing with 1 blood and 1 vengeance, and it was significantly harder than playing with 2 blood decays. Then you can just imagine not having a vengeance, because then you have no additional grips, right?
Yeah.
So that seems to be a bit problematic. Maybe the Goonies could have like some dead time to start with, so they don't start infesting right away, so you don't have to collect them as fast or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But then the spider ad is really rough, because they absolutely melt the tank. And the mechanic being you need to be topped when it hits seems to be a mechanic that blood decays can actually manage better than most. And I mean, at least we are still having tank hits that are way too big for the raid. Like on some overlaps or some situations, we can't get a tank up, and the tank can't top himself, and it hits the raid for too much. And that's also playing the 2 best tanks for the situation. Like, they actually seem to have a really difficult time on the fight. Because meanwhile, you have the tank debuff, you're getting absolutely wrecked by like a big spider or something. You have to grip the ads, and it seems to be very rough.
I don't know if the thing is, though, I don't know if Blood DK is the best tank for that, because the reason why that's hard is because the spiders, they stack up on the tank like a healing reduction.
Yeah.
And so what happened to us sometimes when we had this issue was that, like, our tank, who's tanking the spiders and tanking the boss, has 90% healing reduction because we kill the spiders too slowly, and then he can't top himself because of the way the blood decay works, right? But another tank that isn't so reliant on self-healing, say, I don't know, Protection Warrior or something, that is more like even damage intake or whatever, and doesn't really require as much healing in that sense, from itself or from the healer maybe, might have been better to deal with that, because it wouldn't be as affected by the like the healing reduction, for example.
Well, maybe in the worst case scenario, but I don't think, like maybe in the scenario when the tank has a lot of healing reduction on him, but in the scenario where you don't and you're just taking damage with a moderate amount of healing reduction, I think all the other tanks are a worse option. And having 90% healing reduction on tank, I don't think is having that much healing reduction means you've been hit by the spider a lot, which means you will have lost a lot of health.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
you might be right, but I'm skeptical that, from my understanding, Blood DK is actually really good. Maybe Prot Warrior or something is as good or better, but Vengeance Demon Hunter, for example, because we've tested it, is for sure worse.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just speculating. It doesn't sound good for Blood DK to have a very very large healing reduction, right? Because they can't
Yeah, well, the
do much
tank,
about it, right?
they're not supposed to have it either, you know.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like they're not supposed to have it, and the reason is that's just a DPS question, right? That then your DPS aren't killing the spiders fast enough, and that will in and of itself get nerfed next week by gear, right? And there's actually a lot of points I think in the fight that will get very nerfed by gear. So, I mean, first of all, just by having more like raw damage, you will kill the spiders faster, so the tank will get less stacks. So the tank hit will be smaller, or it hopefully won't have stacks at all by the time that the tank debuff goes out, since or the tank ability, whatever it's called. But also, when that damage goes out from the tank being hit and it's sort of splitting onto the raid, everyone will have more HP based on more gear, so there will be a higher threshold of damage to the tank before people will actually die anyway. And a lot of other things on the fight also get nerfed by gear a lot, which is that, for example, if you get hit by a swirly, if you have 10% more HP or 8% more HP or whatever you're going to have from gear, in a week or two or something, that makes a huge difference, since you don't get unconditionally one shot by those swirlies. You get hit for like, I don't know, at this point, maybe 80, 75% of your HP or whatever. So there's going to be a lot more points where you're going to get hit by that ability and you're still going to live it because you had more HP. So I feel like all of those things together, with obviously just the sort of clearing the ads in general and the sort of enrage just becoming easier with more gear, that says to me that the boss doesn't need a nerf. But I do agree with the one thing, which is that it is really awkward that you need the double blood DK and preferably 2 more DKs, right? Because we played 2 blood and 2 frost, for example.
Yeah.
That part I think is definitely, like, mass grip being so strong, I think is not good. But I don't think anything else on the fight really would need a nerf.
I would guess you would run into problems even if you're not considering the grips. Think if the tanks having to be reliant on a healer to completely or mainly manage their health for the hit, it's gonna be awkward when it seems to be this tough. And yeah, because it's not like the tank that has the debuff isn't supposed to be the one that has all the stacks. So a lot of the times the other tank is kind of dying because the spiders are dying too slow, as you say. But from my perspective, it doesn't seem like it's the main issue with the buff. But having more health will help because you will have more margins as a raid, right?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of these things just won't will. I think a lot of those things will go away. But I think at least for me, the one main thing, like from a comp perspective, is that it's mass grip is just too good. I don't understand how you would. I don't understand how you were supposed to do that without having mass grip, because I assume the same thing that I assume you're doing the same thing like we're doing, which is like mass grip into a triple stun rotation into whatever other type of CC you have on the end until all the small ones are dead, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you have knocks for each spider set as well. So one ranged, 2 ranged with knocks, that being DPS evoker and our boomy, are like hard designed on an egg. So if they get an egg, they always get diamond and the green.
Yeah.
So they insta knock towards the center, and then there's a grip, and then there's a stun chain.
Yeah.
So you also kind of you need 2 knocks, which is a bit easier to manage since there are some different specs who can do it. I guess elemental, boomy, evoker. I'm not sure if hunters have that knock, but they probably do.
Yeah, but yeah, because I feel like having 2 knocks in your raid on it doesn't even have to be on DPS players, I guess. It can be on anyone, right? Not on tank,
Yeah.
but even a healer could do the knock technically.
Yeah.
So that I feel like that's fine from like a comp restriction standpoint, right? But having to have 2 mass grips when mass grip can only be brought by 1 spec, and that is also a tank spec, that feels bad.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how you would do it otherwise. Like then you'd probably need 4 knocks, right? Try and get. You have to knock each side twice, and then you have a really spread AoE, or you have a vortex with a 5th knock. I'm not sure.
I mean, if they wanted to do that, then they would almost have to remove the infest mechanic, right? Because like, how are you you're gonna spend so much time trying to deal with that, right? Because you're not gonna get them in, you're not gonna get them CC'd, and it's just yeah.
It would be toxic now, but they could have just made them spawn better. Like not. I'm not sure if you want to have 2 them at the same place, but imagine if the spider side had 3 eggs that were 2 2 goonies, 2 small lads. So like if they spawned stacked, that would be solved.
Yeah,
but that
if
would make
they
the
were
mechanic
always
a lot
the
easier.
double small egg was the only possible spawn
Yeah.
when there was more than one in a set, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would be fun or if it would be too easy. They could increase their health if they do it like that. They could shift the difficulty in some way.
But it doesn't
they could
really
just-
make it any more. It doesn't really make it easier apart from not requiring the grip, because I don't think it's necessarily very hard to do the grips or knocks or whatever, right? It's just, I mean, of course, there's some potential for failure, but I feel like we had very few pulls that went wrong due to that part, like getting them together. That very rarely happened.
Well, maybe not, but it adds some sort of time element to it as well, right?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
if you just spawn in the same spot, you'd have 3 more seconds or something compared to now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Well, it would. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do anything. I don't think they have to do anything. I think it's awkward and unfortunate about the whole double blood decay, but I don't think that they have to nerf anything now. I feel like, or I assume that most guilds on our, or not on our level, but I don't know. How many guilds are going to kill this boss next week? 50? Something? 100? What do you think?
Maybe if they don't nerf it, probably 50.
50, okay.
But
So-
I feel like they put themselves in an awkward position because if they were to nerf the boss, they should have done it this weekend. Like they could have nerfed it for Sunday when most people played. And that would have been post the top 3 Race the World First guilds, maybe some others, I'm not sure. And then most of the guilds in the world would have been able to progress a more killable version of the fight. If you're considering the pull graph in the raid right now, if you're a top 500 guild, I'm guessing you're gonna have a couple of pulls on the first 2 bosses, maybe 10 on Sikran and the 30 on Rashanan. But even that guild will have like 300 on Ovi'nax, no? Like it's an insane step up, no matter if you're us or them, it's gonna be a shitload of pulls.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like, I mean, yeah, that's the problem, right? That it's the way it worked out in the raid, where there's going to be so many people stuck on
Yeah.
this. I mean, I think Dratnos said in some recap thing that there were more guilds on 4 of 8 than there were 1 of 8, which is kind of crazy, and I don't think that's ever happened before.
So yeah, I'm a bit. I think it was a mistake not to nerf it before Sunday.
Yeah.
because they had time to nerf it without affecting the actual race to world first, so to say, and they could have nerfed it for in some way for the rest of the guilds, and then you would have only affected like 5 or 10 or something guilds that were actually doing meaningful progression on the fight, being able to kill it before the Sunday. Maybe it's like 5 guilds,
But
because
I just don't
it's
see what they would nerf like that isn't, because like the only thing I feel like that is just egregious is the blood decay thing. I don't think the difficulty otherwise. I think it's more like like a better thing would almost be to buff Rashanan and Sikron, but they obviously can't do that. But that would have almost been better because I don't think Ovi'nax is too hard. I just feel like it's too hard relative to what came before it, right?
yeah, I completely agree, but I feel like that's a problem in some sense.
Yeah, but maybe it's not a problem week one, you know. Maybe it's a problem in a few weeks. But maybe what I was gonna get at before when I asked like how many guilds are gonna kill this, maybe it's okay for the top 50 guilds that they actually needed to grab 2 blood decays, for example. Maybe that's okay, you know.
Yeah, but I'm guessing it's super, super, super boring to be a top 500 guild now being on Ovi'nax, and there's no plausible way you're gonna kill this without 10 more item levels.
Okay, but how many guilds have killed Rashanan now? Have 500 guilds killed Rashanan? That can't be right.
No, probably not.
I'm just thinking like how many guilds are actually in this situation now where they're actually like a guild that is not nearly equipped to kill Broodtwister for like weeks.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through radio here. I haven't.
It says it on the front page of WoW Progress.
I'm
Accounts.
committed to going next.
355 guilds have killed Rashanan.
That's quite a lot.
And 7 have killed Broodtwister, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not opposed to having a difficult 5th boss. I'm not opposed to the difficulty of Ovi'nax in general. I think the tanking situation is an actual problem. But it is such a wall compared to the other bosses. Even if you are in a worse guild that have a higher pull count on the bosses we've killed, I think Ovi'nax is gonna be an even higher pull count. It's gonna be proportional, you know. If we have 150 on Ovi'nax, they're gonna have 300 if they're 200 world rankings behind us.
I mean,
And that's not.
if you're a guild that kills like Rashanan in like 30 or 40 pulls, or even 50 pulls or whatever, are you ever killing Broodtwister without nerfs? Like, even with all the gear you're gonna get, are you ever going to kill it? Isn't it like if it takes you that long to kill Rashanan, doesn't that mean that your guild is just not mechanically good enough to kill Broodtwister?
I don't know. It depends on how. Uh, I mean, I would guess you could be capable of killing it. It would just take a long time. But what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna not raid and wait for nerfs?
I mean, you can go in and practice it. If you think you're gonna kill it in a lot of pulls, you should go in and practice it, right? I mean, we didn't think we were gonna kill it this week. We still pull it 80 times.
Yeah, but can't you see how this is a big problem for like pretty much most of the guilds that are worse than us?
Yeah.
There's still like 200 something guilds that are in a meeting like, okay, so Wednesday, are we even gonna pull the boss? If it get nerfed, yeah. If it doesn't get nerfed, I guess we just play keys or something. Like it's not really feasible. Like there's a lot of weak aura checks, comp checks, skill checks, item level checks, DPS, throughput, everything, you know? It's
Yeah.
a 5th boss.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely see the problem. Or well, again, I don't see a problem with the 5th boss being this hard, but I feel like it's a big problem given that the first 4 were so easy. So, yeah, I don't know. But I just don't see either. Like, what's so if we disregard the whole tank thing for a second, if we just talk about like the boss, like what would you, if you had to nerf it to smooth out the difficulty curve of the raid, what could you nerf on the boss realistically? Like, what would you even nerf? Because
Maybe
there's not much
you
healing, right? So you can't really make it do any less damage. That's not
No.
meaningful, right?
probably bump down the health a bit. Like not too much, but you can bump down the health. You could nerf tank healing reduction part of the fight. You could probably give more time to break the eggs. I think that's about it. I would assume that giving more time on the eggs, if we think of like Tindral in the way they nerfed it, is probably seems to be a good way to make a fight more plausible for worse guilds to progress it. Because I'm guessing when you don't have proper weak aura checks and people not being as studied up on the fight, you know, if you have twice as long or something exaggerated to break the eggs, I would assume you'd make the fight a lot easier.
And something I didn't really think about, but honestly, if you're in a bit of a, worse guild, I don't know, like World Rank 300 or something, do you even have a raid leader who's gonna consistently put up all the correct marks all the time for you? I mean, that because that's a huge limiting. Like, if you can't do that, like, there's no way you're gonna have everyone else in the raid just YOLO them correctly, right? That's never happening.
You need proper healing cooldowns to 3 heal it. It is quite easy, but it is because it's static, sort of, and it's very easy to raid plan, but you need to do it. Your tanks need to, for sure, map out how they're going to play the fights. They need externals, they need a bunch of things that tanks aren't usually great at pre-planning. And yeah, someone needs to put markers, everyone has to have weak auras, there's so many random things that has to, not random, but there's so many end boss type of things that are in this fight that I don't think is usually something a World 350 guild has to tackle, you know?
Yeah,
But maybe egg placements would be not the most fun, but I feel like placing small ads side by side in that part of the room would probably make it easier, increasing the lockout on the kick or something as well. I think they just need to adjust the ads to make it more playable without having everything mapped out, like every world marker on every one, having weak auras to manage your positions and whatever. But I don't think it would be a good fight. I think they just put themselves in a tough position where they maybe Nexus Princess just should have been easier. Maybe Nexus Princess is the 5th boss with a way lower DPS check, and that could be a 100 pull fight or something, and you could progress that one instead. So Ovi'nax effectively becomes a hard 6th boss.
But
Would be more proper.
It kind of sucks though, because Nexus Princess has this really cool enrage where people are killing it, right? Which I kind of like. Like, it has that sort of sludge fist feeling, right? When you go into the endless night on the end there, and everyone's like, people are starting to die, and you're sort of killing it off. Like, all the world first kill it like that. And so if you got that fight, then that takes away a lot from all the guilds between that have killed it now and the ones that are gonna just kill it instantly on the nerf, you know.
Maybe you wouldn't have had to gut it. Maybe you just, I'm not sure what's the best play as of this moment, but imagine if you walked in knowing that Nexus Princess was 100 pulls for Echo, and most of the guilds could have started playing that. Isn't that a way more pleasant fight to progress and practice on and play? And maybe we couldn't kill it this week, but we can go in and kill it on reset. And that would mean that the higher world rank guilds would be able to kill it the next reset or something. Meanwhile, now, as we said, I don't think a lot of guilds are killing Ovi'nax in its current state, just because it would take so many pulls to get all the practice in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I have some more sort of. I understand that it's a sucky situation, but I feel like it would be. I hope that they don't nerf Broodtwister this week. I hope that they give it one more week or something. I know that it's gonna get nerfed. I know that it's gonna need to get nerfed. But I feel like I don't feel like world rank 500 guilds necessarily need to be able to kill 5 or 6 bosses in the second mythic week. You know, I don't think that's necessarily true, and I feel like it takes away it definitely takes away a lot from a lot of guilds, right? If you nerf it now, because there's still gonna be like a lot of guilds that are gonna kill it next week, or gonna in a pre-nerf state, and it's actually gonna feel good to kill it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't think it is. I can't see it being salvaged in a good way right now. They just. I mean, I'm liking the tier and everything. It's there are good bosses, and it's fun for us that it is a bit more difficult rather than a bit more easy. But I really feel for most of the guilds are just gonna sit and stare at the unnerfed Ovi'nax and Kivessa, and what do you do for this reset?
Yeah, but I feel like Kivessa they should just remove some HP and got the tank thing. I think that would make the most sense for that boss. But yeah, we'll see what they do. But
Because now they have to let us. They have to let one. They have to draw a line in the sand and let one side of the community be disappointed with what they do with Ovi'nax, right? If they nerf it, we are like the top 150 guilds are going to be really disappointed.
yeah,
And if they don't nerf it, I'm guessing the other ones are going to be super disappointed.
yeah, pretty much.
So
Yeah.
we'll see what they do. I'm not sure. I think I'd like a minor. I think I wouldn't mind a minor nerf if you would remove just some health from the fight. You would open up the possibility for people not to need such a strict tanking setup. At least then a guild could 3-tank if they don't have 2 blood decays. And for us, it would effectively mean we're not killing the boss in the puddle. We'd kill it in the middle or something, which I don't think would be so super unsatisfying since it's not a cool enrage. If they make the boss HP such as you have to play all the ads and then the boss die, I think I would be super happy still.
Yeah, but
You're
then
still
they should kind
removing
of
some part of the fight, but
then it would
yeah.
better to just nerf the HP of the ads, right, rather than the boss, pretty much.
Yeah, it would sort of constitute to the same thing, right? The boss needing, or yeah, they could do that. I'm not
Because
sure.
otherwise you're not really making it easier. That's the thing, right? Because unless you've reached the end of the fight, then it doesn't help if the boss has 10% less HP, right? It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't make
Yeah, but
anything easier.
you're making the comp restrictions easier. You could 4-heal, you could 3-tank, you could not play degenerate a degenerate setup.
Yeah, but the 3-tank, I don't know if they want to push you into, but because that's like weird. Like they want you to play 2 tanks, I think. Generally.
Then they've not made a good
a
tier.
good tier, yeah. Yeah. But
Okay, but other than that, what do you like and what don't you like about the fight?
yeah, so I actually I was gonna say because there are a few things I really don't like, and so I think a lot of those things could actually be good. They're not really nerfs, but I guess indirectly they would be like slight nerfs, but they're more like quality of life fixes that I would really like to see. That I feel like are really fucking obnoxious on the fight. And first, I guess, is the blue swirlies on the ground. I feel like they could use like a major update to their visual clarity. I had, I mean, when we played the boss on Sunday, I just had all my settings on like yeah, I think I had pretty much everything on ultra settings. And I couldn't see them. Like there was just too much crap everywhere, and then I had to put everything down to low to like and like reduce everything and just put on only essential spell effects and everything, and then I could actually start seeing them. And I mean, if they were inside of AMC, then you couldn't see them either. I mean, yeah, it was just I died so I had like the worst raid of my life almost yesterday when we played. Like I died so many times to those swirlies because I just couldn't see them. But it went a lot better today when I had, and the second half of yesterday when I had completely different settings. So I feel like they could do something like that. I don't know if you remember on I was gonna say Lich King, but it's not Lich King. It's Anduin. That they made an update to the swirlies in the like down phase of Anduin and made them like super visible. I feel like that would be a good change. Especially since there's also a weird thing where like the swirlies get hidden under the boss and you can't see them at all, and they also get hidden under the eggs and you can't see them, which is awkward. So they should be visible through that, especially since the boss is so big and immediately don't have a choice where to stand realistically, right? You have to be under the boss sometimes. So that I would like to see some change to for sure. And I feel like that would obviously be like, that wouldn't really be a nerf, but it would be like a good quality of life thing that would make the fight a little bit easier as well. And then I don't know, have you guys had issues with like the egg, like sometimes the eggs just don't break even if you're right next to them?
Maybe we've shadow played most of them, and usually you can see why it didn't break. Like both of the people are certain they were on it, but then you check and one wasn't really. You
Yeah,
need to overlap it quite a bit.
Yeah, because we had one today, or several ones today, honestly, because we put up a lot of screenshots about this. But I think the most egregious one is the singular large egg that you have in some places, because for some reason there's like it's not circular in any way, or it's not like how would you call it? Like basically there's like an invisible wall around it, right? And the invisible wall isn't a perfect circle around the point that which you need to hit with the thing. So in some places there's like a jagged edge where you can't, even if you go as close as you can, you're not going to break it. If you run into the egg, you will not break it if you run from the wrong angle.
Okay.
Which is super stupid. And we have like people, we looked into this and we have like screenshots of this looking super stupid. And so you have to really like get inside the freaking big egg, which is super annoying.
Yeah, we talked about this, not the big egg, but in general, we talked about the egg breaks before even pulling the boss, that you have to stand like in between them. So if you have a pair of eggs, a worm and spider, you're standing sort of in the Venn diagram of it, or like you're standing in the within them.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like because literally on the big egg, there is a point where you can literally like auto walk straight into the egg and it will still not break because you're
Yeah, that's
stuck
not
on an
great.
invisible wall, and that is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, they could have made that very generous, because when you fail an egg, it's off. It should only be when one person isn't at the egg. It's not satisfying to have a wipe and look at the shadow playing like, oh yeah, but you were 3 yards outside of the hidden hitbox.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of the same. I think it falls under the same like type of thing as the swirlies, where it's very very unfun to die to a swirly that you just didn't see because there's so much like other clutter going on, or it's under an AMC or something, and it's kind of, or it's under the boss's fat belly, you know. It's kind of the same thing here. It's very unfun to wipe because you instantly wipe as well if you don't break an egg, right? So it's super unfun where like both people are standing there and it's like, well, I guess someone needed to step 1 yard to the side, you know. That's, yeah, that doesn't feel fun. And
Do
another
you think?
very, or yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you think it would be a good thing to make sort of? Because you get a 30-second debuff if you let an egg touch the shit on the floor, and that's pretty much that is a wipe. Like, you're not gonna go through that. Do you think it would have been a good nerf to make it so you can afford one?
I forgot to say this earlier, but I'm almost 100% sure that that is going to be the nerf that will happen later, not now, but later, like when they need like more guilds to kill it. Because obviously that if you're able to do that, and maybe you don't even get a debuff, maybe just add spawn and just have to kill them, that completely changes the fight and makes it so much easier, right? Because you have so much more lenience then.
The progression will be a lot better, because
Yeah.
most of the wipes are missing, or a lot of the wipes are just missing eggs.
Yeah.
And then you just, okay, do we wipe now or do we play for 30 seconds to maybe see the next set of ads?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want that now, but I think they should do that in like a month or 2 months or something. Like, I think that's a good thing to do later on, but I think even, I don't think that's, I think that's too much. That is like that is a massive, massive nerf, right? Like that absolutely guts the fight if you do that now, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's eventually that will have to happen like for, you know, world rank 500 killed or whatever. They need that to kill it, I think. But the one thing that I would actually like to see related to that is that I think that you should be able to walk through the eggs. you know, they're like you actually get stuck on the eggs, right? But I think that you should just be able to walk through them. I don't think they should be transparent is the wrong word, but they should be like you shouldn't collide with the eggs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they shouldn't have an actual hitbox. Or
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is that would completely change and or make it a lot easier to do this whole breaking thing, because even if they wouldn't increase the hitbox of them, well, if you could run into them, it would be very obvious where you could stand. But also, it's actually extremely fucking toxic, because obviously all these eggs are always close to melee, right? And I guess it can happen to range as well, but I guess it happens more often to melee. Is that you actually get stuck when you're trying to run around, and you get stuck on these fucking eggs. And then you might take a swirly, or you might not be able to make it to the other egg or something, because you just get stuck on the edge of an egg or some shit, you know? And that's really annoying as well. So I would really like to see that changed, where you can just run through the eggs. Because I don't feel like that, like that's also one of the things, like I don't think that trivializes the fight or anything. It just takes away an annoyance from the fight, you know?
yeah, yeah, I haven't really. I agree with what you're saying, but I haven't really related to the same things. Like the swirlies, I always play in raid on a lower setting because I have that raid graphic setting tick box, you know, so everything is at like 2. And I'm arranged, so the swirlies are quite obvious, and I'm not really bound to a position, you know.
Yeah.
And the eggs, I do think the eggs are a bit awkward, but I'm playing Evoker, so I can double jump through the eggs. Like you have to jump, yeah, where you would think you could jump through, like in between them, but I can jump through them.
Yeah.
So that's good. But I think for me, it's a very specific healing related issue that could be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Go
Because
ahead.
Blizzard does this thing with some mechanics where they realize, oh, it'd be super toxic if the healers get this mechanic all the time.
Oh yeah,
Or
I know what you're gonna say.
and then they make it so you get the mechanic but super infrequent. And imagine, and I'm talking about the egg breaking debuff mechanic here. I'm not sure, I could go back and look, but I think I'm getting the egg break like once every 5th pull or something, maybe every 4th, or I'm not sure. But that would be like maybe once every 10th or 8th or something break that's happening. And that makes it so annoying to learn how to break them. Like I'm focusing a lot on looking at the markers, and I have the map enabled from the Northern Sky Weekaras, which is actually great if you haven't enabled it and are a bit unsure. But I don't know, it's just so annoying to get a super important mechanic so infrequent you can't practice it, but you can't fuck it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
I'd
mean,
much rather get it as much as everyone else. Like it'd be so much easier if I just got all of them would be good, none of them would be good, or as much as everyone else, just not to throw off the progress curve. Because it will happen that your healers are like, oh fuck, I didn't know where Diamond was. And he legit has played the fight for 100 impulse and haven't gotten that ad break yet.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
I don't
I
know.
feel like they should have just made it, especially on this fight, since you're fucking 3 healing anyway. Should just made it so that one healer always gets it or something on each set or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's sort of backwards, right? Where I think they're trying to make it easier for the healer, but they're actually making it so much harder because you can't really practice. And what you do or what I do in these situations is I really try to pay attention, and I try to learn even more than if I would have gotten it at the same rate as you. But that's very distracting as well. I don't know. It is just way more difficult not to get the mechanic often. I think it's the worst possible solution if their intent is to make it easier, which I think it is.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I know that they've done this many times in the past, but I can. Can you think of any example where that felt good or where that made sense? You know?
I mean, there are for sure examples where it's just practical not to get it. If if it's a mechanic that's not difficult but annoying, like you have to run out with a circle or something, then I don't mind the change. But then the change is not needed either, right? There are some mechanics which you don't get. I don't have an example on top of my head, but usually the mechanics you never get as a healer, you're very thankful for, because it's usually something that's completely gonna brick your possibility to like ramp consistently or something.
Yeah.
But there are some mechanics that have worked, like you say, where one healer always gets it. And that's sort of easier, because then you assume you're gonna get it, because you get it every third time or some fourth time.
Yeah, I mean that's how we play it as a DPS now, right? You assume you're gonna get it every time because you're
Yeah.
like, well, you're ready every time. You're never there like, oh, no, I'm not gonna get it. You're always ready, right?
Yeah, and I have to remind myself that the mechanic is happening, because I'm not getting like I'm not building up sort of a gut reaction to when they go out, because I get it so infrequent. So I'm just trying to like, I'm always positioning myself next to one of the marks that I can get, or that I'm high prio on, and then I look at where the other one is, and then I try to remember that the mechanic's coming out. I haven't, besides from like the first 10 pulls, I haven't fucked it up yet, but it's taking so much of my actual brain power for a mechanic I'm rarely dealing with.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really feel great.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I guess I don't know. Do you always get the same, or do you get completely different every time now as a healer?
I've gotten 3. I don't think this is different from healer. I think ranged are prioritized on 2 and melee are prioritized on 2, but I don't think there's a hard set amount of melees and range that get the debuff. So far I've gotten most of the egg breaks I've gotten have been one of the 2 range marks, but maybe like a 5th or a 6th or something of them has been one of the melee marks.
Yeah,
So
I have a very low
yeah.
consistency of that. I feel like I get all of them, or maybe it's mostly 3. I don't know. I pretty much get all of them. I feel like anyway.
There's one I haven't gotten, I think, but I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I should look into that obviously, because if there is one that I never get, then it would be easier. But I'm not sure.
You should get star and orange the most.
I get purple the most for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I can probably, you can probably see in the logs, right, when you have the marks. I can probably even check if I got all of them or not. But yeah, I had some annoying warrior specific things to complain about as well on the fight that are kind of toxic as fuck.
Bladestorm timing?
Not Bladestorm. Well,
Odin's Fury?
well, so there's like 2 things that both result in the same issue, right? Which is that first of all, the fight is super stressful because you play anger management, which you don't play on any other fights, which means that you play active CDR, right? So you're reducing the cooldown of your Bladestorm and on your recklessness all the time. And then you have Thunderous Roar 45-second spec as well. And then you have already Odin's Fury 45-second spec. So you need to have recklessness basically becomes the bottleneck that you need to have every 45 seconds for when the eggs come, right? And that requires you to have pretty high uptime with the current gear that we have, because you don't have enough haste. So I even started gemming over to haste, and next week when I have more haste, it's going to be a lot easier. And the Race to World First had it a lot easier because they had better gear. They had 4 or 5% more haste or something. So that in and of itself means that you're like, fuck, every time I get a mechanic that requires me to not fully hit the boss, then you get screwed, and you know you're going to be desynced for the entire fight, basically. Or well, it resets when you break each canister, basically, so then there's a longer time. But the super awkward thing with that as well is that at many points in the fight, the spawn of the ads is very close in time to when the webs go out. And when the webs go out, you absolutely cannot be in the middle of sequencing out your cooldowns, because then you will instantly break the web in melee. Because literally every fucking DPS button that you press, if you press Odin's Fury, Avatar, or Bladestorm, all of them will break the web, which I don't think is true for any other class, that their DPS cooldowns all just break the webs.
Yeah, we had some incidents with that.
Yeah. We had that as well. And it's super awkward because you're already so stressed about getting everything ready in time, because you're doing this active thing and you're like super stressing, like, oh, it's ready, and you're just like starting to mash, getting all the cooldowns out. And then like, oh no, the webs are coming, so they have the fucking circle week or whatever, like webs incoming, and it's just such a it's such a specific thing, but it's so annoying, and really hate that about the fight. So it's gonna be really nice next week when you're gonna have. I'm just gonna get like 5,000 more haste next week. I'm just gonna get haste everywhere, and then I'm just gonna be chilling, you know.
Yeah, that's probably good for progress. So, because it is things like that are just annoying to wipe to, even if even if it is difficult for you, you're put in a position where you have to bladestorm or you have to do that thing. And I-beam and bladestorm and kicks on the worms, and there's a lot of annoyance with these timings. You don't really need another one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it just becomes really fucking annoying and really, really stressful. I feel like that's happened a lot too. Just because warriors often work like this, right? But it just becomes super awkward when it's obviously nice when you have some. I mean, in that sense, you don't want to complain, right? It's really nice to have all your cooldowns in this build, like for every set of ads. That's really good. That's why you can do a lot of damage from the fight. But it's super awkward the way it lines up just because of this week's gear. But I feel like even next week it's going to be completely different. So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's good, but always nice to complain. But those things are nowhere near as annoying as those other things that I mentioned before. Like, you know, you can't run through the egg and you can't see the swirlies depending on your settings and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but that seems like a problem that affects more people as well.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think honestly, like this, not like the swirlies under the boss. That just seems like a. I don't even understand why they haven't done something with that. That just seems weird. Like, or like, given how tight the spacing is, like because you always pull the boss in between the egg breaks, right? So you have very little space where you can stand, and you're already dodging all the swirlies on the outside. And then you also know that you can't run under the boss because anytime you run under the boss, you basically have to assume you're going to be one shot because you can't see what's under there, which is annoying. And I wish you had that powder, you know, from that you used in Dragonflight. Maybe that would have helped.
Oh yeah, the see-through.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but you guys are at 86 pulls according to Radio.
It's probably true.
What's your prediction on pull count and boss dying? Like what day? So Wednesday is splits or something like that, right?
Yeah, Wednesday will be splits, I'm assuming. I would be very surprised if we don't do splits on Wednesday. And then we're probably going to start coming back in clearing Mythic, right? I would probably guess like maybe it's, if there's no, because there were server issues this week, so we were off for like 30 minutes, right? I would guess that Wednesday will be splits plus the first 4 bosses Mythic. Something like that I think would happen on Wednesday.
Yeah. So then you need 2 more days on it.
So on, I don't know, like assuming they don't nerf anything now at this point, right?
Yeah.
How much gear are we gonna get? I think if we get a little bit, I don't know, maybe we can kill it in one more raid. If we have one full raid on it, maybe we can kill it. If we have 2 more item level, I'm not sure. Maybe 1 or 2 more raids. I think either. I will say this. I'll be surprised if we don't kill it by Sunday. Like if we don't kill it, if we have to go all the way to Monday, I would be a little bit surprised.
Okay.
What do you feel for you guys?
I'm gonna say the same thing, I think. If it doesn't get nerfed, I think I'll predict it's gonna die on the progress day too. And it's gonna be like another 50 something pulls, because the closer you are to the kill, the longer the pulls will be, right?
Well, unless you keep wiping on the first set of eggs anyway, but you know.
Yeah, that will happen for sure, but hopefully not to the same extent as pull 15.
Yeah, no, I think something like that probably. I don't know how many pulls did Race World first have? They didn't have that many, or?
Yeah, they had. Let me check. I think our guilds are on a similar enough pull count. I'm just gonna check Liquid, and they had 100 pulls.
Okay, I think we're gonna do more than 100 for sure.
Yeah, I'm guessing about 150, so like 60 more or something, and then we're gonna kill it on Sunday for us, which will be raid 2.
Okay, I'm gonna
Or
go
Mythic Grade
slightly
2.
crazy and think that the gear will do more, and I'll say we kill it on Thursday then, just so we have some different perspectives. Or well, we could
Okay.
both be right, I guess, since we're predicting now about different guilds, but still.
Yeah. And then Kivesa is not gonna die in 100 pulls if it doesn't get nerfed.
I mean, I don't think so, but I didn't watch enough. I was like out this whole weekend pretty much. How much of the difficulty would you say is because of the like throughput requirement, and how much is just mechanical on that fight?
I think for us, a big problem will be the mechanical part, but not the actual mask breaks or the main mechanic. I think it's the intermissions that are super rough because you're basically playing like a Firak on steroids, right? You just have to dodge everything. Like everything is avoidable in both the normal phase and the intermission phase, but you will die from it. Like it's not plausible to not stand in 2 lines for 20 pulls in a row.
So what you're saying if everyone's Giga gamer, you just don't need healers. You just play 0 healers and just fucking go crazy. Kill it super fast.
Yeah, sure. But I think that would be a lot more difficult than one would expect when just watching the fight, because that's also what they were wiping to. Like most of their deaths, as far as I could see, is just avoidable damage, but it's not avoidable. Is sort of an exaggeration, right? Like you will stand in stuff,
Yeah.
and on top of that, you will fail the mask break. You will send balls through the raid, and yeah, normal wipes. So I think the main question mark I have about the damage tuning is that they managed to kill it quite late with 1 tank. And I have a hard time speculating, but I'm guessing that a couple of more item levels isn't gonna make up for a whole other DPS. And the Raise the World First guilds are quite decent at the game as well, right?
Yeah.
So health and stuff will obviously help stray deaths, avoidable damage deaths. But if they have 300 pulls on it, and we have 1 more reset of gear, I don't think we're killing it in less than 300 pulls.
But
Because
we're
you'd
we're also,
probably...
don't we think that will I think that will get nerfed this week. I think that will have some nerf on Wednesday already, or like on reset. Because I think that they really, I'm pretty sure that they want to get rid of the 1 tanking.
Yeah.
Because they already put up a hotfix that forced you to have 2 tanks on Silken Court.
Okay.
Because the change that they made was that whatever the tank debuff is, that persists now if you die, which wasn't true on KVS obviously, and which was why you could solo tank it. So
That
I
kind of
would,
makes sense for Silken Court as well, since they have death persistent debuffs already.
yeah. But
But yeah, if you can 2-tank it, and you can 4-heal it with whatever comp, basically, and you still have the damage check without it being super, 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 super close, which hopefully it is, right? Uh, it's probably gonna be like I would guess it's gonna be like a Ovi'nax pull count. I think most of the difficulty is just throughput
okay.
in both healing and damage.
I guess one thing as well is that Raise the World First used Vantus runes on Nexus Princess, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, at least the majority of their members.
Yeah, and so I don't know what's gonna happen now, but at least this week I assume you also used Vantus runes on Broodtwister.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's gonna happen next week as well.
But I think a very plausible, depending. Okay, let's assume that Nexus Princess gets like a slight nerf and nothing else happens to the raid. I would guess we would go in next week. We would Vantus Ovi'nax and kill it. We would progress Kivesa for the remaining 1 to 2 days. And then if they're not getting nerfed, I would guess you just extend Vantus, Kvesa, kill it in 2 days. So 4 total or something. And then progress court, Vantus court, extend. Yeah, you get the point.
Question is if you Vantus, sorry, not if you Vantus, but the question is if you actually do the extend there, because obviously the first 4 bosses are super easy, right? So you can kill them really fast. There's really no risk of you getting stuck on the reclear, especially like week 2, 3, whatever. So I guess at this point we're even talking about week 3 Mythic. But the thing then would be like, if you look at Broodtwister on week 3, after you've already killed it once, do you need the Vantus rune to kill it again with another week worth of gear? Because like you're still getting a lot of gear, right, from clearing these bosses.
Yeah, probably not. But would you, if you're making the decisions, would you be comfortable saying let's just re-clear Ovi'nax real quick?
Actually, one thing I just thought about is also that you don't have to do that, right? You can go direct, you can clear 4 bosses and go Nexus Princess, right? You don't have to go and
Oh, that's true.
you don't have to go and hit your head on Ovi'nax if you don't want to. So that's a different possibility as well, that you just do the 4 bosses and then you just go and Vantus Nexus Princess and progress that or whatever, and then you can visit Ovi'nax whenever, you know?
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. I didn't think of it, because that means you can get reclear value, and you can get Vantus value, and you can get progress value with that Vantus, and you don't have any immediate stress of killing Ovi'nax. And if you're assuming that Ovi'nax is, or I mean, if you're assuming that Nexus Princess is mainly gonna won't be aided by the Ovi'nax gear, it does make sense to progress Nexus then, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
Because then Ovi'nax would be the first in line to get a nerf. So presumably you could progress Nexus Princess and hope for an Ovi'nax nerf for the coming reset or something.
I mean, we're also getting to the point at at the point where we would kill Nexus Princess. We're also getting to the point where this like raid wide buff thing is coming. I don't remember what is it, the 4th Mythic week, or is it the 4th week of the raid overall, or what? Because that's happening as well.
Not sure. I've heard 4th week as well, but I don't know if it's starting from Heroic or Mythic week.
Because obviously, I don't know how much. Let's say that that's like going to be like a 5% throughput increase or something. That would easily make it so that you can kill Broodtwister and Nexus Princess, I guess, without Vantus. Like just in terms of the throughput, you still have to deal with the mechanics, but that would easily push those bosses right over the edge.
Yeah.
So yeah, that might play, like that thing coming in might play into when you would extend, you know. Because there are some really, really high impact items, I think, especially on Nexus Princess. I think that's the, what's it called, the treacherous thing, whatever, the trinket that people use. I think it might be only strength and agility, but it's like a really, really OP trinket. And I'm assuming there are other trinkets from other bosses as well, like Spy Master or whatever. Which boss drops that even? Is it Rationon?
Court.
Oh, it's Court. Okay, so it's much later in raid. Okay, so then that doesn't really.
I think. Wait, what number of bosses do you need to kill to get the 2nd Mythic Vault? It's 4, right?
It's 4, yeah. So a lot of people in our guilds already. I mean, you got it right. You played all the bosses, so you should have 2 bosses, 2 vaults. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm thinking I'm stuck up on the what if you re-cleared and didn't kill Ovi'nax and started progressing instead. I think the only drawback I can see to that, or the biggest drawback, is assuming you're playing a bigger than 20-man roster, you're gonna have vault issues by not killing the boss.
Yeah. Yeah, but maybe that's fine, you know.
Yeah, maybe it's worth. I can't remember being put in this exact position where you would have the option to re-clear and progress the next boss without having to kill the previous annoying wall boss.
Yeah,
depending on the timing of the week and depending on nerf. I mean, maybe they announce a nerf and then the decision becomes quite easy.
But yeah, because it's historically, I mean, outside of some weird cases like Sepulchre or whatever, but generally there's not been a wall style boss before the raid had converged into only one possible path where you had to kill every previous boss to get there. So we haven't really had this situation, yeah. I think that's going to be like a novel decision pretty much whenever we reach that point.
Well, yeah, but I also do know how much people enjoy gear, and it might not be super popular to say, you know what, let's not even try to kill Ovi'nax and just value progression time on Cuvesa instead. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure it's the right decision, but I would assume it's a good decision, or it could be a good decision to just say, you know what, we'd rather spend 1.5 hours more of progress on Cuvesa and sacrifice the Ovi'nax loot.
I mean, you much rather end the week by killing Nexus Princess and not killing Broodtwister than killing Broodtwister but not killing Nexus Princess because you needed another hour or whatever, you know? So,
yeah, but also you're sort of making a trade-off in time investment. If Ovi'nax would get nerfed and Cuvesa wouldn't, you're sort of trying to trade time spent on Cuvesa versus a couple of vaults and whatever items that the boss drops. And if you pair this with an incoming damage buff to the entire raid, hopefully meaning that the raid gear is less valuable,
yeah.
maybe it would make, I don't know, it's very speculative now, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out, because it could end up with people just not re-clearing Ovi'nax and just slamming their head against Cuvesa, because I don't feel like Ovi'nax is the easiest boss to re-clear. It's not a boss you'd want to bring in new people on either. Like, you would kill it in a re-clear, but I think it's a real coin toss if it's in 20 minutes or 4 hours, depending on how clean your progression was. Because as we talked about in another episode, you can kill a boss at a point where you should kill a boss, and you can kill it after and before, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if you kill the boss after the point you should have killed it, you're quite confident in re-clearing it. But if you've had a good pull, it could be really scary.
Yeah, I mean, the more like if you really early like randomly killed it, right? Like if we had like a fucking stars aligned moment and killed it today, you know.
Yeah.
Would that have meant that we should have already extended, you know? Probably not, because you could do that whole thing go Kevesa, but in many tiers probably that would have been the case, right? If you had something like that, maybe you should just like take the win and just extend from there and just not play, because you're like, well, then we don't have to spend another 2 hours actually learning the fight that we just randomly have managed to kill now. But of course, it's awkward this early in the tier as well, because you lose all of your potential re-clear gear as well. So yeah.
It's always a hard trade-off with extending and having more progression time versus re-clearing and having more gear.
Yeah. But well, luckily neither of us will have to deal with that decision now. Someone else will have to figure that out this time around.
Yeah. But all in all, I think, even though we're quite annoyed, I think we're quite happy with the difficulty. Like, for us specifically, it is fun to have difficult bosses.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun that it's not like a 2 boss or 1 boss tier. You know, it's actually going to be like 4 difficult bosses this tier, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm all for it. I like it. I wish there was some fewer annoyances, mostly on Broodtwister, but other than that, yeah, pretty happy so far.
Yeah, and maybe the first bosses should have been harder rather than Ovi'nax being easier to make the curve a bit better.
Yeah, that would have been good for sure. But yeah, too late now, I guess. Unless they just want to gut Broodtwister or Kevesa.
Well, let's hope they don't, I guess. But either way is a win for someone, you know.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Did you have anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I guess it's the sort of same question as always. How do we
Yeah.
how do we end this this thing?